The
Sure.
Yeah.
strangest thing I ever removed from a home was a container of lint that was bigger than the waste management trash can. It had to be 4.5 feet high.
Some celebrity mansions are so strange, eerie, or controversial that Hollywood did everything it could to keep them out of the spotlight. From Judy Garland's pain-filled home to Rudolph's ghosted mansion, these homes hold stories more shocking than the stars who owned them. Join us as we uncover the 7 weirdest estates Hollywood tried to hide. Number 7. Rudolph Valentino's Falcon Lair. Tucked away in the quiet hills of Beverly Hills, once stood a stunning mansion known as Falcon Lair. This was the private hideaway of silent film star Rudolph Valentino, a man whose fame during the 1920s made him one of Hollywood's most adored actors. Back then, his face alone could fill theaters. With hit movies like The Sheik and Blood and Sand, his smoldering eyes and powerful performances turned him into the ultimate heartthrob. His fame wasn't just about making mouth, he actually earned a fortune and lived like a king. In 1925, riding high on his success, Valentino bought a grand Spanish-style home nestled in the Hollywood Hills. He gave it the name Falcon Lair, inspired by one of his favorite movie characters. The place was no ordinary house. It was a breathtaking villa with stylish furniture, a wide open courtyard, and a view that stretched over the whole city of Los Angeles. He poured his wealth into every detail, turning the estate into a glamorous paradise. There, he threw fancy parties, inviting Hollywood's biggest names. It was the perfect place for a star at the top of his game. But then, in a cruel twist of fate, his story took a tragic turn. Just 1 year later, in August of 1926, Valentino suddenly collapsed. Doctors rushed to treat him and found out he had a serious infection in his stomach called peritonitis. Despite their efforts, the illness was too strong. In just a few days, the world's most famous movie star passed away at the young age of 31. The news was really a heartbreaking one for his fans around the world. Fans were so devastated that thousands gathered for his funeral. The pain was too much for some, and a few even ended their own lives out of sorrow. After his death, the grand estate that once echoed with laughter and life grew quiet and strange. People started saying that Valentino's spirit never left Falcon Lair. Stories began to spread about a ghostly figure seen walking the halls. Some claimed they could hear footsteps when no one was there, soft whispers from nowhere, and even the sound of a horse running, believed to be the ghost of Valentino's horse, which they said died from heartbreak after losing its owner. Things got even stranger when one of Valentino's close friends, Alicia Haskell, told others that he came to her in a dream. She said he warned her to stay far away from Falcon Lair, calling it cursed. Visitors who dared to enter the house often described feeling a cold, haunting presence. According to so many people, it felt as if Valentino's energy still lived inside the walls. Over time, different people bought the mansion, but many couldn't keep it. Some simply walked away, unable to handle the strange energy it seemed to hold. Although the home carried a deep piece of Hollywood history, Falcon Lair was eventually torn down in 2006. Much of the once beautiful mansion disappeared forever. Today, only bits and pieces of the original estate remain. Yet, even without the walls or the rooms that once held his dreams, the memory of Falcon Lair and the ghostly whispers of Valentino still float through Hollywood stories. The mansion may be gone, but its mystery and magic continue to send shivers down the spine of anyone who hears its tale. But it seems another celebrity's mansion has a more eerie story than Valentino's mansion. So, keep watching to find out. Number 6. Barbara Hutton's Winfield House, Beverly Hills. In Beverly Hills, there once stood a mansion called Winfield House, a place that looked rich and beautiful on the outside, but held a quiet sadness within its walls. This grand home belonged to Barbara Hutton, a woman known around the world not only for her incredible wealth, but also for her troubled life. She was the heiress to the Woolworth fortune and, at one point, one of the richest women alive. But behind all the money and sparkling jewels was a woman who never truly found happiness. Barbara Hutton was known all over America, not just for her wealth, but also for the heartbreaking story behind her glamorous life. She was born into an incredibly rich family, the granddaughter of Frank Winfield Woolworth, who built a retail empire. As one of the heirs to his fortune, she ended up with a huge share of his estate, making her one of the richest women on the planet. But while the world saw a girl with everything, her personal life told a very different story. She first grabbed attention in 1930 when she was introduced to society with a luxurious debutante party. It was during the Great Depression, and people called her the poor little rich girl, not because she lacked money, but because they sensed something sad behind all the sparkle. That nickname stuck with her as her life unfolded in ways that showed just how lonely and painful such wealth could be. From the start, Barbara's childhood was clouded with pain. Her mother passed away when she was only 4 years old, reportedly from complications related to an ear infection. But whispers have always lingered, suggesting that it might have been an attempt to take her own life. Her father, though wealthy, was distant and hardly gave her the love or attention a little girl needs. This emotional emptiness from an early age made it hard for her to feel truly connected to others later in life. As she grew up, she went on to marry 7 different men. Some of them had high-sounding royal titles from different parts of the world, but many treated her poorly. Instead of love, she often faced betrayal, with several of her husbands taking advantage of her wealth and kindness. On the outside, she seemed to live a life others could only dream of, surrounded by beautiful clothes, grand homes, and jewels. People envied her beauty and the calm, graceful image she showed in public. But behind closed doors, she was battling deep insecurities and loneliness. To escape the sadness she felt, Barbara often turned to heavy drinking, substance, and the company of charming but unreliable men. The same people who praised her in public often gossiped about her struggles, not realizing the pain she carried inside. Her story became a powerful reminder that money doesn't always bring happiness, and even the most glamorous lives can be filled with silent suffering. Barbara's life had been marked by pain from the very start. She owned many magnificent houses across the globe, but Winfield House in Beverly Hills was one of her most private retreats. While other celebrities filled their homes with music, laughter, and parties, Barbara's mansion stayed quiet. It wasn't known for excitement or Hollywood glamour. It became the place where her sadness grew in silence. By the time Barbara moved into Winfield House, she had already lived through several marriages, including one with famous actor Cary Grant and others with royals from Europe. She spent without thinking, buying fine art, rare jewelry, and homes that looked like castles. And Winfield House was one of the grandest of them all. It was designed to be a peaceful escape where she could hide away from the pressures of the spotlight. But instead of bringing comfort, the house seemed to reflect her deep loneliness. The estate was full of priceless art and old treasures, but there was barely any joy within its walls. While people expected her to host elegant parties, Barbara kept to herself. Only a few staff members lived in the house with her, quietly watching as she slipped deeper into sadness. Her many failed relationships and reckless spending caused her to slowly vanish from public life. As her money began to disappear, so did the beauty of her home. The gardens became overgrown, and the sparkle of the estate began to fade, much like the woman herself. Whispers began to spread about Winfield House, not the kind of gossip that followed movie stars, but something softer and more tragic. Visitors spoke about feeling a heavy sadness in the air, as if the walls were soaked in forgotten dreams. The grand furniture and priceless decorations looked untouched, like a museum filled with stories no one wanted to tell. The house wasn't haunted by ghosts, but by Barbara's own regrets. As her health worsened, the house slowly fell apart. The shine of the past was replaced by silence and shadows. By the time Barbara passed away in 1979, most of her fortune had vanished. This woman who once lived like royalty had lost almost everything. Her beautiful mansion, which once sparkled with wealth, was quietly sold off. No headlines or even a grand farewell. Just another piece of old Hollywood fading into history. Winfield House didn't become famous for scandals or wild nights. Instead, it became a quiet reminder of how even the richest life can be filled with deep emptiness. The mansion, like Barbara Hutton herself, became a forgotten chapter in a world that moves too fast to remember the sad stories behind the beautiful walls. If you think Winfield really lived a life that affected her so much, wait till you hear about the next celebrity in the next number. Number 5. Pickfair, the fairy tale mansion with a dark side. Pickfair, once the most admired home in early Hollywood, was the magical estate of silent film legends Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks. Built during the 1910s and later expanded into a massive and elegant mansion, it wasn't just another rich couple's house, it was a bold symbol of fame, dreams, and success. People didn't just visit Pickfair, they experienced it. The estate opened its doors to some of the most brilliant minds and famous faces of the time, from Charlie Chaplin to Albert Einstein. It was a sparkling palace that made Hollywood feel like a fairy tale. But behind the beautiful rooms and glittering events, there was sadness that most people never saw. During the height of their stardom, Mary and Douglas were seen as the king and queen of the movie world. Their home became known as the White House of Hollywood, where grand parties, romantic dinners, and high society get-togethers lit up the nights. It was the heartbeat of Hollywood's social life. Yet behind the smiles and flashing cameras, their relationship was slowly falling apart. The fame they had really came with a lot of pressure. Rumors about Fairbanks having affairs grew louder, while Mary quietly battled alcohol addiction. Their love story, once seen as perfect, ended in divorce in 1936. The same home that had once been filled with laughter and magic became a quiet place of sorrow, where Mary lived out her days feeling alone and lost in her struggles. After Mary passed away in 1979, the mansion passed through different hands. Businessman Jerry Buss owned it for a while, and later actress Pia Zadora and her husband took over. But instead of restoring the estate, they tore most of it down in the 1980s, saying it was damaged beyond saving. Their decision shocked many, especially fans of old Hollywood and preservation groups, who believed Pickfair should have been protected forever. It was more than a home, it was a piece of film history. But Zadora had her own strange experience to share. She claimed the mansion wasn't just old, it was haunted. She described seeing ghost-like shapes moving through the house and said the strange energy inside made her believe something not of this world lived there. Whether real or imagined, her stories added a chilling layer to the legacy of Pickfair. The demolition of the mansion caused a wave of anger and sadness. To many, it felt like a precious treasure had been destroyed. The mansion that had once represented the golden age of movies was now just a memory. Its walls torn down, its stories left behind as whispers in the wind. Number 4. Errol Flynn's Mulholland House. Errol Flynn's home on Mulholland Drive wasn't just a fancy place to live, it was a full-blown symbol of wild living, secret adventures, and a bold life that pushed every limit in old Hollywood. Flynn, the charming actor who played the fearless Robin Hood, had a life off-screen that was even louder than his movies. His house, hidden high up in the Hollywood Hills, quickly became one of the most talked-about places in town. For all the wrong reasons. It wasn't just known for its size or beauty, it was famous for being a wild playground where some of the most unbelievable parties in showbiz happened. This house, sitting quietly above Los Angeles, was built to be a private escape. Flynn had every inch planned for both comfort and mystery. There were sneaky passageways tucked inside the walls, hidden rooms only he knew about, and even a special mirror that let him secretly watch his guests without them knowing. From up there, he had a perfect view of the city and a perfect place to hide from the press, the public, and anyone who wasn't invited to his private world. But what really made the house unforgettable was the wild, non-stop parties that happened there. Flynn invited the biggest stars in Hollywood, and when they arrived, the rules disappeared. People drank without limits. Beautiful women filled every room, and the stories of what went on behind those doors were so outrageous that even in Hollywood, where everything seemed possible, this house was in a league of its own. There were whispers about a tunnel under the house, a secret path so Flynn's famous guests could come and go without being seen. Some people believed it, others didn't. But the rumors only made the house more mysterious and more scandalous. Flynn's wild ways inside that house only made his already controversial life even more dramatic. He was often seen with very young women, which sparked major backlash and led to serious court cases. In the 1940s, he faced a trial that accused him of being with underage girls. Although the court cleared him, the case left a deep mark on his name and added to the dark legend of his home. While the world gossiped and pointed fingers, Flynn ran back to his mansion, using it as a hideout from the mess his life had become. But instead of healing, things just got worse. The parties got louder, the drinking got heavier, and the actor who once lit up the big screen began to fade. As the years went by, Flynn's health crumbled, and his career lost its shine. Even the house that once pulsed with energy and wild laughter now felt empty. His reckless ways had taken a toll, and by the 1950s, the once bold star looked like a broken man. His private paradise slowly turned into a quiet, sad place where he battled his demons alone. When he passed away in 1959, at just 50 years old, people said the house didn't feel the same. Something about it seemed stuck in time, as though the wild spirit of Flynn and all those unforgettable nights still lingered. After his death, visitors often said the house felt strange, almost like it was still alive with memories of its chaotic past. Some said they felt a chill, or like someone was watching, even when they were alone. The most annoying part of everything was how Hollywood never talked about this darker chapter. Probably because they were always eager to show off its bright side, rarely talked about this darker chapter. The house, with its deep secrets and wild stories, was slowly pushed out of the spotlight. Over time, it was sold to new owners who tried to erase what had happened there. But no matter how much they changed it, the spirit of what once was still seemed to cling to the walls. Number 3. Howard Hughes's Germain Street Mansion. Another mysterious story quietly tucked away in Los Angeles was the secret home of Howard Hughes, the famously odd and brilliant billionaire who changed the world of aviation and film. Most people remembered Hughes for being rich, powerful, and incredibly private. But not many knew about the hidden mansion he kept on Germain Street, far from the glitz of Beverly Hills. This wasn't the kind of house where celebrities threw parties. It looked more like a hidden shelter, carefully chosen by Hughes for its privacy and security. By the time he moved in, he had turned from a charming businessman into someone completely obsessed with being alone and unseen. The house itself felt more like a secret hideout than a real home. It wasn't filled with fancy furniture or decorations. Instead, it held stacks of newspapers, sealed jars he refused to throw away, and all kinds of random things he collected. Every window was shut, and every door tightly locked. Only the few people Hughes trusted were allowed to step inside. He barely spoke to anyone face to face. Most of the time, he would write down notes to communicate with his staff. His habits grew stranger with each passing year. He became very picky about food, only eating very specific things that had to be made just right. He avoided touching anything unless he had gloves or tissues. Inside the dark and quiet rooms, film reels were everywhere. Even though he had stepped away from the movie business, Hughes still loved watching old films, sometimes countlessly playing the same film, and lost in scenes from a world he no longer took part in. From this lonely space, he still managed to run his businesses, but his strange behavior became too obvious to ignore. People in Hollywood whispered about how far he had slipped from reality, but few really knew how deep his isolation had become. The mansion was protected like a secret vault, with guards making sure no one got near. Then, In the 1960s, Hughes walked away from the house completely. After that, it slowly fell apart, abandoned and forgotten, just like its owner. The place became a ghost of the strange man who once lived inside it. The truth about what happened behind those locked doors was hidden, carefully covered up by the powerful people who managed Hughes's life and legacy. Even now, the full story of his final years inside that eerie mansion remains a mystery, one that may never fully be told. Number 2. The Paul Bern-Jean Harlow Mansion. The house once owned by Paul Bern and Jean Harlow has gone down in Hollywood history as one of its darkest and most tragic homes. Set in the luxurious hills of Beverly Hills, the mansion was originally meant to be a peaceful home for the glamorous actress Jean Harlow and her husband, Paul Bern, a top executive at MGM Studios. But instead of being a place of happiness and romance, it became the scene of one of the most mysterious and talked about deaths in old Hollywood. It was a tragedy that would definitely haunt every person who lived there after. Paul Bern, known around the movie world as a well-mannered and respected man, tied the knot with the famous Jean Harlow in 1932. At that time, Harlow was the queen of the silver screen, known for her beauty and charm. Many people thought the pair didn't quite match. He was much older than her and lacked the good looks and wild energy of the men Harlow had dated before. But even so, the two moved into their stunning home, which stood as a symbol of success in the movie business. Again, everything seemed perfect on the outside. But just 2 months into their marriage, something terrible happened. Paul Bern was found dead inside the house, and it looked like he had been seriously attacked. Next to his body was a strange note that seemed to suggest he had taken his own life because of some deep shame. The case was quickly labeled as an attempt to take his own life, so it was closed by the authorities. But people started whispering. Some said it wasn't an attempt at all. Rumors spread that he might have been eliminated by a jealous ex-girlfriend. Others believed the studio might have tried to cover up what really happened, especially to protect Harlow's image and keep the press away from the scandal. The sadness didn't stop there. Only 5 years later, Jean Harlow herself passed away at just 26 years old. The official cause was kidney failure, but many believed the emotional toll from her husband's sudden death and the non-stop pressures of being a Hollywood star played a big role in her decline. The house, once alive with glamour and promise, now felt cold and filled with sorrow. As time went on, the mansion's reputation grew darker and more haunted. People who later lived in or visited the house claimed they felt something wasn't right. Some heard odd noises with no clear source. Others said they felt a heavy sadness the moment they walked in. A few even believed they saw a ghostly man walking the halls, thinking it might be Paul Bern's spirit still trapped there. The mansion's scary image became even worse when another tragedy struck decades later. In the 1960s, a popular hairstylist named Jay Sebring moved into the house, not knowing about its painful past. Sadly, his life was also cut short. He was eliminated in 1969, along with actress Sharon Tate, during the Manson family's terrifying assassination spree. At that point, many people began calling the mansion cursed. It was no longer seen as a dream home, but rather a place where happiness turned to heartbreak. Eventually, the once beautiful house began to fall apart. Fewer people wanted to live there, and many believed the memories it carried were just too dark to erase. It became one of those hidden places in Los Angeles where people drove by without knowing the pain it once held. Though it no longer makes front-page news, the house still stands as a reminder of the secrets Hollywood tried to keep quiet. It's a chilling example of how the golden days of film weren't always so golden. Now, getting to the last number, we have The Mansion with one of the heartbreaking stories in Hollywood. Number 1. Judy Garland's Oz House, Brentwood. She was a well-known American performer who acted and sang with deep emotion. Her voice was rich and strong, and she was admired for being able to perform in many different ways: on stage, movies, the radio, TV, and even live in front of crowds. People all over the world came to know her best as the young girl named Dorothy in the classic 1939 film, The Wizard of Oz. Her performance of the song Over the Rainbow touched hearts and became one of the most loved tunes in American music history. Over the course of her long career, which lasted more than 4 decades, she made 11 full albums. Many of the songs she recorded were so special that they were later honored by being added to the Grammy Hall of Fame. Judy Garland began performing when she was just 2 years old, sharing the stage with her older sisters in a small vaudeville act they called the Gum Sisters. Her talent stood out early, and by the time she was 13, she had signed with the big Hollywood studio Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. As time went on, she started showing audiences a different side of her talent. In the 1950s and early 1960s, she took on deeper, more emotional roles in movies like A Star is Born in 1954 and Judgment at Nuremberg in 1961. While everyone celebrated her for her performance, nobody knew that she would one day make headlines because of her home. Judy Garland's Brentwood home, often called the Oz House by fans, carried both the shine of her fame and the shadow of her personal pain. Unlike the usual Hollywood mansions filled with luxury and grandeur, her house stood out for its quirky and almost magical look. People believed it looked like something straight out of The Wizard of Oz, the very movie that made Garland a beloved star across the world. But behind its fairy tale charm was a much deeper, sadder story, one that mirrored the painful path Garland walked for most of her life. From a young age, Garland was thrown into the spotlight. Her life was shaped by the demands of movie studios that dictated everything: what she ate, how much she slept, even how she looked. To keep up with the non-stop work, she was given pills to stay awake and others to help her sleep. As the years passed, these pressures only grew heavier, and the toll on her health became impossible to ignore. By the time she moved into the Brentwood house, she had already faced emotional breakdowns, gone through failed marriages, and suffered from setbacks in her once shining career. The home was supposed to be a peaceful retreat for her and her children, a place to rest and heal. But even in this cozy corner of Brentwood, her troubles found her. Though the outside looked warm and inviting, those who stepped inside often described an unexplained sadness that filled the rooms. Garland, known to the world for her dazzling voice and joyful spirit, battled inner darkness that few saw. She would often walk the halls at night, unable to sleep, overwhelmed by worries about money and the future of her career. As time went on, her money problems only got worse. Although she had made huge amounts of money over her career, poor management and overspending left her nearly broke. Keeping up with the cost of the house became harder and harder. To stay afloat, she was forced to go on overwhelming tours, even when her body was exhausted and her mind worn out. These efforts to save herself pushed her health to its limits. The Brentwood home also saw many emotional ups and downs with the men in her life. Her relationships were stormy, full of passionate arguments and dramatic reunions. The house became the setting for these moments, and her children, including the future star Liza Minnelli, grew up witnessing their mother fight through both the beauty and the pain of being famous. Without everything going on, Garland couldn't hold on to the house. The money just wasn't there anymore, and she had to walk away from what was once meant to be a safe haven. That house, much like Garland herself, became a symbol of dreams that faded too soon. It held a promise of peace that was never fulfilled. After her death in 1969, the house was sold quietly. Much of its history faded with time, just like many stories from old Hollywood that were never meant to be told. But for those who remember, it remains a silent echo of a gifted soul who gave everything to the world, even when she had nothing left for herself. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.